Something was wrong. Our son, who had been talking more and more every day, suddenly started speaking less and less. One day, he was telling us about his toys, and a few months later, he barely said a word. If you're a parent who's experienced this sudden regression in your autistic child, I need you to know right now, you are not alone and there is hope. Today, I'm sharing exactly what happened in our family, why we think it happened, and 5 things that actually helped us get our son's words back. I know how terrifying this is. When your child who is meeting milestones starts losing skills, your heart drops into your stomach. You start wondering, did I do something wrong? Is this permanent? Will he ever talk to me again? Let me validate what you're feeling right now. That fear you have, it's real and it's justified. Watching your child retreat into silence is one of the most painful experiences a parent can go through. You might feel isolated, like nobody understands what you're going through. You might have well-meaning family members telling you not to worry or doctors who dismiss your concerns. I felt all of that. The confusion, the guilt, the desperation to understand what was happening to my child. But here's what I want you to hold on to. Noticing the change and wanting to help is the first step toward making things better. You are already doing the right thing by watching, by caring, by seeking answers. If this resonates with you, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. We share our real experiences to help parents like you feel less alone. Let me tell you our story. Our son was developing normally for the first few years of his life. He said his first words around 12 months, started combining words by 18 months, and by age 2, he was speaking in short sentences. He was curious, engaged, and so full of personality. We felt lucky. Then, around age 3, everything changed. Slowly at first, we noticed he was using fewer words, then more noticeably, he stopped initiating conversations. Within a few months, he went from a chatty little boy to a child who communicated mostly through gestures and occasional single words. The regression was subtle enough that some professionals didn't seem concerned, but as his parents, we knew something was wrong. Looking back, we can identify several factors that likely contributed to this regression. First, we realized our son was experiencing sensory overload that he couldn't process. Around age 3, his world became more complex. There were more people, more noise, more demands. His brain was receiving too much information and speaking became overwhelming. When you're drowning in sensory input, the first thing to go is the most complex skill: verbal communication. Second, we discovered he was dealing with anxiety he couldn't express. Autistic children often feel anxious but lack the words to communicate their fears. Our son became so overwhelmed by internal feelings that speaking felt impossible. Every attempt to communicate verbally became a source of stress. Third, we learned that his environment had become too demanding. We were asking him to do too much too quickly. We didn't realize that our well-meaning efforts to help him were actually adding pressure. Speech therapy sessions, educational expectations, and our own anxiety about his development were all contributing to his silence. Fourth, we found out he had developed ear infections that went undetected. Some children experience hearing fluctuations that affect their speech development. Getting his hearing checked revealed fluid in his ears that was affecting his ability to hear his own voice clearly. Finally, we recognized that his communication attempts weren't being responded to effectively. When he did try to communicate, we sometimes anticipated his needs too quickly or didn't give him enough wait time. This reduced his motivation to use words when gestures worked just as well. Once we understood these factors, we started making changes. It wasn't an overnight fix, but we slowly saw improvements. Here are 5 practical tips that genuinely helped us. The first tip is to create a low-pressure communication environment. We stopped forcing our son to speak. Instead, we created situations where communication was easy and rewarding. We played games where he only needed to use 1 or 2 words. We gave him choices throughout the day, making words useful rather than mandatory. We celebrated every attempt to communicate, even if it was just a point or a gesture. The goal was to make language feel safe, not forced. We learned that when we stopped demanding speech and started inviting it, our son felt more comfortable trying. The second tip is to reduce sensory overload. We audited our home environment and found ways to reduce sensory triggers. We turned down background noise, provided quiet spaces for him to retreat to, and gave him warning before transitions between activities. We also used visual schedules so he could anticipate what would happen next, reducing his anxiety. When his nervous system was calmer, his ability to speak improved significantly. We noticed that on low stimulation days, he was much more likely to initiate verbal communication on his own. The third tip is to focus on functional communication. We shifted from trying to get him to say perfect sentences to focusing on functional communication. If he could ask for what he needed using 3 words instead of 10, that was progress. We prioritized meaning over form. This reduced his frustration in hours. Every successful communication built confidence, and confidence built more communication. We stopped correcting every grammatical error and instead focused on whether he was getting his message across. The results were remarkable. The fourth tip is to work with professionals who listened. We found a speech therapist who specialized in autistic children and understood regression. She didn't just work on articulation. She helped us understand the underlying causes. We also had his hearing checked thoroughly. The right professionals can identify issues we can't see themselves. Don't stop searching until you find people who truly listen to your observations. We went through a few therapists before finding the right fit, and that search was worth every moment. The fifth tip is to build communication into daily routines. We made communication part of our everyday life, not a separate therapy activity. During meals, bath time, and play, we created natural opportunities for him to use language. We commented on what we were doing instead of always asking questions, which reduced pressure. We waited patiently, giving him time to process and respond. Over time, these everyday moments became practice sessions that didn't feel like practice at all. Consistency was key here. Every day, we looked for those small opportunities to encourage verbal communication without making it feel like work. Today, our son communicates so much better than he did during that difficult period. He's not where we hoped he'd be, and we're still working on it. But the progress has been real. The silence that once terrified us has been replaced by a voice, even if it's a different voice than we imagined. Some days are harder than others, and we still have moments of regression during stressful periods. But we've learned to recognize the patterns and intervene early. If your child is going through this right now, I want to leave you with this. Your child's regression doesn't define their future. With patience, understanding, and the right support, they can find their way back to communication. Trust your instincts as a parent. You know your child better than anyone. Keep advocating, keep loving, and keep believing that progress is possible. The journey is hard, but you're not walking it alone. If this video helped you, please subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/@neuroparenting-B4P and share your own experiences in the comments. We read every comment, and you're not alone on this journey. Let's navigate this together.